All right, all right. Hey, everybody. It is the 13th of March, 2024. This is Gimbalabs Open Spaces. We get together every Wednesday and Thursday at 14:30 UTC. For anybody who got times mixed up, sorry about that. Just remember that our times are pegged to UTC, so this will never change. But if you live in a country where you do change the clocks to or from daylight savings during the year, the start time will be different for you. And we were just talking offline. I have to fix some of the Zoom links. We'll get those fixed right after this meeting. The way we start these open spaces is by just taking a chance to drop some ideas on the board for things you might want to discuss today. So I just added some additional green sticky notes here. And if I zoom out, you can see that I'm over here on the right-hand side of the board, down near the bottom, in a frame called 2024-313. So I'll set a timer for just a few minutes so people can either jump in here or in the chat to share what you want to work on today, or if there's anything you want to talk about. Often, as you can see in the other examples, we start dragging these circles over towards the circles that we set up in the first part of this year. And I already added a few sticky notes just from the conversation. Ken mentioned consent and consensus. I just wanted to make sure everybody knows that Mesh Live Coding starts next week. And Claudio mentioned Dandelion, so I can share some updates on that. Or Martin mentioned Dandelion, so I can share some updates on that. Let me set a timer for 2 minutes. And during this time, you can jump into this Miro board, add sticky notes, or if you don't have access to Miro, just drop some ideas in the chat and I'll make sure those get onto the board. In 2 minutes, we'll discuss and make a decision about how to spend time today. Any questions? All right, let's do it. 2 minutes. All right, thanks for taking some time to think through this. And so what we usually do at this step is we can move from left to right through some of the ideas here. And I'll leave some extra stickies at the bottom so you can grab these if other thoughts come up. I'll just grab this one first because this one is not something that I'm prepared to dive into today, but just wanted to share with everybody that we do have a grant from Intersect to work on Dandelion. Roberto Morano and I have been drafting a budget proposal for how we use those funds. And one of our goals is to build Dandelion project-based learning course for the first time, with the outcome of supporting, we haven't set a number yet, 5 or 8 or 10, all right, but supporting a handful of new Dandelion node operators to come online. And we would use part of the budget to make sure to pay for infrastructure costs for that work. So this work is coming soon, but with a couple other priorities. I haven't yet gotten to the point where that proposal is ready to share. But I'm excited to bring that. And there's just a couple of steps necessary before getting to that. Any questions about what's coming up for the Dandelion work? Cool. Stay tuned. Really excited to get that out. But tackling one thing at a time as we get there. Ken, you want to talk about what you'd like to cover today with regards to consent and consensus?
Okay. Yeah, this past weekend I was looking at the S3 practical guide. And there was this section around page 34 or 36, depending on what, like at page 34, but the 36th page in the document. But so it was talking about let's see, talking about how objections are a part of consent, and consensus is different. Let me see if I can find here. Let me read this paragraph. Adopting the principle of consent shifts the aim of decision making towards identifying a solution that's good enough for now, and where there's no objection, no obvious worthwhile improvements that would justify spending more time. This approach is far more effective than trying to arrive at consensus with unanimity, where the aim is often to accommodate everyone's personal preferences and ideas. There's another section that says that for consensus, supremacy lies with whoever decides to block a proposal or existing agreement. So I was just interested in hearing what people think about that, or like trying to figure out just the distinction there, like so it's clear in our minds what the distinction is.
Awesome. Thank you for digging into that. Do you want to host a breakout room today to lead that conversation?
Yeah, that's an option. Like we'll see what we're doing in the main room first, and if that's, I'm willing to do that if people want to do that.
Yeah, that's great. And I have a note on that in just a sec. Continue to move from left to right. Mesh live coding. This is also just an announcement. Was talking to Demi and to Chris. This is something we've been thinking about for getting going for a long time, but it's official next Tuesday. And so that date is 2024, the 19th. And
I
we're
don't
gonna
know if you read in chat, but Demi said that he cannot at this time, or like he said he will try to, but it's during his working hours.
yeah, I mean, there's no perfect time. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll record these. Okay, so these sessions will be recorded. We'll start with this time. If it turns out to be a major blocker, we can look at other times. But for now, let's start with this. We'll get it underway. and we'll have a focused hour. And so that means we can, one of the things I'm excited about starting off these live coding sessions is that it's 1 hour of supremely focused work. We don't have to wonder what we're going to cover because we can just jump right in. We know that's the topic. While that also opens up space at these open spaces to keep the agenda wide open. So really excited this is on the agenda. I'll check in with Demi about whether or not this can work. And if we have to, we can look for other potential times. Proposal writing. Anybody want to talk about adding this one?
Yeah, I think it would be good for us to excuse me, for us to practice a little more about the driver, actually the frame that you put together and work on that. I don't know if you will be working today on PPBL 2024 planning, but that will be kind of good to exercise besides Notion, just for us to be more, or at least in my case, to be for many of us that are not familiar with Notion yet too much. It would be great to do masters that type of information.
Very good. And yeah, you're right, Juan. That actually, whoa. That is exactly what I have in mind when it comes to PPBL 2024 planning. Is last week we started drafting a proposal to start that work. And that's what I would propose to do, at least in the education circle, is to continue this. Circling back to Ken's point about consent and consensus, and really, thanks for looking at this guide. I really do recommend this resource to everyone. One of the things that I've started to identify in my own work is that one of the best ways to learn S3 and to learn this distinction is by putting it into practical practice, right? And so what I mean by that, and if you read this guide, you'll get the gist of it. The point of S3 is not to implement S3. The point of Sociocracy 3.0 is to provide patterns that can be integrated into work you're already doing. And one of the best ways to learn it is by applying it to specific cases. So I recently brought a proposal to this group that we could use Notion for some project management. And we decided preliminarily to move ahead and start practicing using Notion. But the real reason I brought that proposal is because it gave us something specific against which to start learning this distinction between consent and consensus. And maybe you recognize this from our conversations about that proposal. There's a lot of ways that the proposal is not perfect. Because what would perfect mean? Perfect would mean that it addressed every single person's individual concerns, even if they were competing concerns, right? And so that level of perfection, everybody thinks this is a perfect plan, might be impossible. And that's consensus, right? One way to think about consensus is as perfection, right? Whereas consent, that phrase Ken shared, right? Good enough for now and safe enough to try is a phrase that you might hear often. And this is the point we got to with the Notion proposal. Is everybody perfectly happy with it? Probably not yet. But do we have a plan that's good enough for now and safe enough to try? We think so. now we can practice that process again. Rather than revisiting that decision we've already made, we can jump into the PPBL 2024 proposal and see if we can get it to this point. Can we get it to the point where people say, hey, this plan is good enough for now and safe enough to try? That allows us to get started. So what I would propose, we can have a breakout room where specific conversations about S3 itself happen. What I would prefer to do with my time personally today is to actually focus on something specific, because by doing so, it'll help me practice these S3 processes and maybe personally get a little bit better at the process of consent. How does that sound to folks? All right, and then parenthetically, what I really want to do today is just keep talking about what we talked about at Playground yesterday and think about this Asteria game in the context of what it could be inside of the PPBL 2024 course. But I'm fighting the urge to jump straight into that because it'd be good to just have a general frame for how we're thinking about that course. And then to be really excited that one of the things we can look at together is integrating this game and maybe building a few example lessons or modules around it. But this kind of is a prereq. So if this was the main room today, ooh, that's funny. I like how I can move the main room. If this was the main room for today, would there be any objections to that? Keep going with practicing S3 by working on this proposal, and then eventually ending up with a plan for PPBL 2024. Good enough for now, safe enough to try? All right, I'm going to open up that proposal then. If anybody needs a breakout room, let me know. We can create those, okay? All right, so there's a working proposal draft in our momentarily still free Notion space called Deliver Plutus PBL 2024. And we started writing it last week. But just to show you one cool thing about Notion before we talk about the S3 part, at the bottom of any proposal document, which is eventually going to turn into a project that's in progress, okay, there's already a task board set up. Why is this a nice thing? Well, oops. I just mentioned on the Miro board that I'm excited to play with Asteria and think about how it might relate to this course. I really want to think about that, but I also know that I have to finish writing this proposal first and get the consent of the rest of a team. But I don't want to forget about that thing I was excited about. So I could drop a task down here, okay? And now if this does become an official project that's in progress, there's already going to be a list of tasks that we could take on. Now, what's the priority of this task going to be? I'm not sure. There might be some really high priority tasks that we have to get to before we start just playing and planning. But maybe this will be a really high priority. I don't know. Okay, so we have that ability too. For now, I'm not going to prioritize this. It's the only task in the list. But if other stuff comes up, we can keep it here to form our backlog. Where we left off last week is we felt okay about the driver that was starting to emerge. And I took a couple of notes based on feedback from this session. Okay. Yeah, exactly. And backlog also an S3 term. Very good. Thanks, Newman. But let's take a look at the driver first. Okay, so remember our primary driver to provide open, replicable, safe spaces to learn, explore, empower individuals and organizations anywhere so we can solve meaningful problems. This is what we came up with in January. And ideally, if we're going to build Plutus PBL 2024, it should be pretty obvious how it connects to the primary driver. I don't know if it is yet, but we can always come back and read the proposal through the lens of, hey, does this help us with our driver? As a step towards getting there, here's our current draft of a driver for this proposal, right? We're zooming in from the organization level down to the project level. Currently, the Gimbalabs Plutus PBL course is out of date and needs revision. It also has a general scope that's too big to be approachable to many learners. The current course does not support students to learn up-to-date Cardano development skills, and often students get stuck. The effect is that Gimbalabs does not currently have an up-to-date course for onboarding new contributors. We need to update Plutus PBL to a 2024 version, and perhaps to consider what some other PBL courses could be. By attending to this need, we will continue to provide safe spaces to learn and courses that empower individuals to contribute. So what do you think about this driver? I'll kick it to Alex first.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you what's your sentiment towards adding Helios PBL, and like how do you feel? Because I see sometimes people ask questions about Helios. On one hand, Helios has very nice documentation and community which is supportive, but on the other hand, we don't have PBL, so I'm kind of ambivalent and I don't know what to think about this. So
Love it.
like,
I love it, right? Like, I think that's a perfect addition to this list. So right here, the language says perhaps consider. Should the language here be a little stronger than just perhaps? And should we just say we need to consider what other courses we could build? And then we can have a list down here where we start to set those priorities. Okay. Newman, what do you think?
I do like that direction of sort of breaking it up because it matches the learner. Another under this concept of matching the learner, Mesh PBL, Aiken PBL, Helios PBL, Cardano Go PBL, that feels like the language of the teacher as opposed to sort of the empowered student. So perhaps we can look for other ways of categorizing it. Yeah, if that sparks some inspiration.
well, Helios PBL could be TypeScript PBL because many people speak TypeScript.
Yeah.
Well, and Aiken could be Rust, and Mesh, I don't know in which it's built. Go is already Go.
Yeah, so those are the languages for I'm thinking of like, because from my understanding, like Mesh, which I guess I have the most experience with, is a front end. It's like a front end thing. But perhaps I'm, so it's like building dApps, a building dApps PBL. That language as opposed to a language. I'm not saying that this is the right way to do it. It's just something to consider. Yeah.
Very good. We can imagine non-technical PBL courses. S3, for example.
Right.
And maybe it would be helpful to put some non-technical courses in this list but maybe that would cloud our understanding, right? Plutus PBL, in my understanding, is a technical course. And what it's built for is to help people build a mental model of how applications work on Cardano. And that was true even last year. We called it Plutus PBL. But how much time did we really spend writing Plutus code? We taught people how to build transactions, right? And think about how a validator works once it's used in those transactions, which to me is a prerequisite towards being able to write a smart contract validator in the first place, right? What is this thing? How am I going to use it? And so I'm wondering what I can imagine if we do assume that Plutus PBL is a technical course, then it's going to introduce a variety of topics that help people build up their understanding of development. And then it's going to provide bridges to deeper technical dives. Like what? Perhaps Mesh, perhaps Aiken, perhaps Cardano Go, perhaps Helios. And right, think about Mesh as just one example. In Plutus PBL, could we do one or a handful of lessons that say, hey, here's this library called Mesh. You can use it to very quickly connect a wallet. Here's what that looks like. Want to know more? Here's a whole course about Mesh PBL. And I can imagine that same pattern repeated throughout the course. However, if we did repeat that pattern, is there a better way to name these courses that helps to address this concern, right? Yeah, well, all we're doing is we're playing Mad Libs right here. We're just slapping the name of a development framework in front of the letters PBL, and we're saying, well, that could be a course.
Yeah.
Do we want to avoid doing that, or is this the best way to describe these?
Yeah. And it is, I guess it does sort of break down technical, non-technical. And it is, because sometimes you just want to know Mesh. It's just like I know what I need. I need to know Mesh. That doesn't obfuscate. It doesn't, but I think what you're so those are good. But I think what you're talking about is that Plutus PBL kind of didn't. I think that's what I'm hearing you saying. It's just like we didn't write that much Plutus, or we spent a lot of time on other things. And so does it need a new name? And does it fit this pattern of sort of breaking it off into the smaller subsections? And we've been talking about that for a while. So I'm glad that we've kind of highlighted that and gotten it into the proposal. Yeah.
Thanks. Alex, you had your hand up.
Yeah, well, I want to come back to the point Newman raised about what actually students want to learn, and just maybe reflect a bit deeper. And because until the student knows what to do, they don't know what they need to learn. It's a very often thing. So as like their guides into Cardano world, maybe we shouldn't think about what student wants to learn, but well, we should think about what they want to learn. And so there has to be a phase which reflects what the student is looking for. But on the other hand, the essence has to be what we see best for the student to achieve their goal. And this comes to the point that, but how do we know the goals which our students want to achieve? And well, we have the developer ecosystem survey, which maybe has some data on it, but not much more. So I don't know past that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, find us a link for that one for sure. And then like what Nori is saying in the chat about knowing who the learners are, that I would love to see that sort of in the proposal for any you
All
know.
right, I will link it because there's information there as well about the like composition of Cardano ecosystem. The data is from the people who fill the survey, so it's like they don't need to learn this anymore, but maybe it's the best data that we have so far.
And just hopefully this is sort of following the same thread. You know, what tools or resources are out there existing now? For instance, Emergo or or Plutus Pioneer, or the Harsha, the thing that you and I took that they redid, the basic Cardano Academy, Cardano Foundations. You know, we did the pilot program and then they changed it with the AI lady. I've got a link up. Hold up.
Alex, your point about people not knowing what they don't know is so important. And so on the one hand, we want to know early on, what do people want to learn from this course? While on the other hand, we want to watch how their understanding of what they need to know evolves over time. And everybody here, I think, knows Professor Mix. Is he here? But he was a student of Plutus PBL in the second iteration of the course. And when he showed up for the course, what he said he wanted was he just wanted to be able to port an Ethereum-based application over to Cardano. But what he learned by asking for that is about the UTXO model. He was not aware that he had to understand the UTXO model first. And then once he did, he has since become one of the best in the business at helping people imagine what you can do with UTXOs. And I'm sure you can hear his voice just saying, UTXO, we have this UTXO over here and this one over here. So that's a journey, right? And so and he would be the first to say that when he started the course, he didn't know what he didn't know. And so we have to balance that understanding. And that's really why we're looking at helping people who express interest in Cardano development to build the mental models they need to know what they don't know in the first place, and then to start the tasks of learning those things.
Yeah, this makes sense. I posted the survey in the chat, and
Thanks.
it's a GitHub repo, but there's like you can open it in the browser from there.
Great.
And yeah, it's nice. Like it sounds sensible what you say about people are coming to just generally interested in Cardano development, and what we're teaching them is UTXO model. Well, yeah.
I'm taking a lot of notes here. One of the things I love about drafting a proposal in this tool is that it's probably true, like a link to an existing course, or this could be several, like we could have Emergo here and several others, probably doesn't belong in the background or rationale section. So sometimes when I'm in the middle of a meeting, I take notes in one place, but then I realize, actually, this should probably go, oh, I don't know where this should go, but I can move it around, right? So just showing you that it doesn't really matter because we can just drag stuff around in the long term. So I do want to get this background streamlined a little bit, but before we do, back to the driver, we're talking about this concept of considering what other PBL courses could be. I took the word perhaps out because maybe this should really drive us, right? Think about how to update, and could I use the word streamline right here? Or focus. And then to consider what these other courses should be. What else do people think as you read the driver the way it's written right here? Does this accurately describe how you understand the work?
Well,
James, can you put the link for this Notion document on the chat for me, please?
Yeah.
I can't read it. It's letter is too small for me.
Yeah,
And/or stop moving it around.
sorry. Yeah, we can publish. I just made this public so anybody can review it in its current state right here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about when we're talking about these other general scope. It also has a general scope that's too big to be approachable to many learners. Yeah, so that's what we're talking about with the consider some other PBL courses could be. Yeah.
I feel a need to add a line here to really show the connection between general scope and this need to focus.
Okay. Yeah.
Something I don't know exact. I'm not going to try to wordsmith it yet. I want to try to spit the thought out and then clean it up later. Like
Gotcha.
we can, the new version of PPBL 24 can focus on I always use the same words like building background knowledge, even though it's not just that, about what all Cardano devs need to know. Mental models, UTXOs, transactions, what's a validator? You see, and this language would certainly not end up in the primary driver, but like this is the idea, right? What if Buddhist PBL was a shorter course than it's been in years before? That just made sure people get a really strong big picture understanding, right? Until I understand what a validator and a transaction are, for example, it's really hard to start. But the good news is we've built up some expertise over the last few years showing people what a validator is and what a transaction is and a few other concepts, right? And so if we keep that focus, but we never need a dedicated module about mesh because we're pointing people out to a different course and so on and so forth with Helios or Go or Icon. Alex, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm thinking, I want to reiterate a point from which I brought up well, last time we were talking about this document. And what helped me understand the connection between validators, transactions, and how they work together is building a smart contract. So how it happened for me, I took Helios contract, Helios vesting contract, and my goal was to implement a loan contract. So vesting has one logic and loan has another logic. So just in the same way that in front-end development, we use the framework to generate a template, a boilerplate, right? So a lot of time I spent just creating the boilerplate in the potential robot project. But once it was ready, it took me about less than a week to dig through documentation on methods and functions that relate to transaction building and to the validator, and to be able to just choose the proper methods for the validator, have idea in my head which primitives would be in the transaction to trigger this, like successfully or not successfully trigger the logic of the smart contract. And then it kind of all clicked for me, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is how it works. So now I understand how I can build a DApp, right? So, and that's why I brought up the idea of the vesting contract and the idea that taking one contract as an example and implementing another contract, which is not like ideally doesn't exist. Well, it's not very easy to do because there's like, I don't think there's a lot of things you can do in a UTXO model, and maybe account-based model is more versatile in this sense, but that's like, but still, if the student doesn't know the end logic of the contract, and we just present them with a natural language description, they will still have to go to the documentation, find the right primitives, methods, functions, whatever like tools used for building this, and this will teach them the skills that we actually, I think, are useful in the like when you are engineering as
Really
a
well.
Web3. Yeah.
This was a great point last week. And like, I agree, like when you said it always succeeds was too abstract to be helpful, right? Sometimes when you're using the hello world application, you're missing out on all of the programming language, right? You're not really learning what the thing does. So when we show people always succeeds, it's probably not delivering on what we really need to do, because it's not giving people a real world example. So this concept of using well-documented canonical contracts, learning how to navigate the documentation, and I'm reiterating the point down here just to make sure that we hit this, right? We don't want to use those trivial contracts. We really want people to learn from real logic, if possible, right? So that's where we're going. When it comes time to build this course, we absolutely want this point right here and this point right here to be front and center. What do we need to say in the driver to make sure that the way we say the driver, Alex, communicates what you're saying here?
The new version of PPBL 2024 can focus on guiding developer through implementation of new validator logic and corresponding transactions. That's sort of the smart contract.
This is cool. So here, let's put this. New version can focus on guiding developers to implement validator logic and corresponding transactions, because really that's the mental model. I need to understand that over here I'm writing a validator, and then outside of the validator I'm writing transaction logic. And that's what a Cardano dApp is. And so people need to understand the distinction between those two things. And when we say implement validator logic, we recognize that that can be done in a variety of languages: Plutus TX, Aiken, Helios, the list goes on. Same thing, corresponding transactions can be built in a variety of libraries, no matter what language you like to use. We show you how to use Cardano CLI a little bit, maybe write some bash scripts if you want to, but then we quickly show you that, hey, if you're a TypeScript developer, there's some libraries that can help you. If you're a Go developer, there's some libraries that can help you, and so on in building the transactions that you need to build. If we communicate these two things really clearly, is that a pretty good driver for the course?
Is it safe enough to try? I don't know.
What if I add just a tiny bit of a language right here to understand the architecture of an application built on Cardano by, and then we say this, by implementing validator logic and corresponding transactions across a series of applied examples, something like that.
Yep, that's
I
it.
like that more than this throwaway line right here. And then we can still say by attending to this need.
Yeah, because understanding the architecture of application built on Cardano is a general understandable, like someone's like, oh, I want to understand architecture built on Cardano. It doesn't require you don't need to know the background knowledge of knowing what a validator logic and even the idea of transactions, because transaction in UTXO is different than an account-based model. And then a series of applied examples like gets us to our projects we don't have it in there, but the idea is this goes beyond the trivial, and maybe even making a change from always succeeds, like from 2023. So yeah, I like that.
Juan, what do you say?
Yeah, I was thinking, it's great. It has the tech component, but I was just thinking, who is our object? What is the objective? Who is the persona in the time frame for this plan? Objective, because we want to attract certain public. Who is the persona that we are going to attract? And also, I guess programmers, people that we want to get people involved in the Cardano technical development ecosystem. But if we are thinking of attracting people that is not techie, which is a very important part of the the governance part. Maybe that's another branch there that can be considered, and think about what is coming to us. It's coming the bull run. A lot of people that comes without no knowledge, just interested in the noise. And for sure, a lot of these people is going to be very interested in learning what we have to say here. So the question is, what is the vocabulary that we can use to attract that crowd? Just thinking that to give a little bit of
Excellent. So that feedback is helping me get clear on what I want to try to say with this proposal, because I agree with you. There are non-technical people out there who want to learn things, and this course is not for them. And we have to say it that way, because if we try to make any given course for all possible audiences, we will never actually make progress. And so I'd like to actually adjust this proposal. I have a very strong answer to this question. Have we identified who the students are, right? Or Juan, like you're saying, who's the target audience or the persona for this course? Let's start with that. In the background rationale, okay, this is really, Nori, that's funny. See you soon. For me, maybe the first thing we have to say is that Plutus PBL is a course for people who want to learn how to develop applications on Cardano. Full stop. Okay. Will there be other courses for other audiences? Yes. And how will those courses get built? They will get built by people who choose to define audiences other than this one, write proposals, and start building those courses. But Plutus PBL is a technical course, and it's for people who want to learn how to develop applications on Cardano. Would anybody change the language right here? Can I make this clearer? Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I just want to second your point and just say that the users which we hope to attract to the ecosystem in general are not like, people are not very interested in learning. They're interested in using. So if we have end user products, which people can intuitively, like with good user experience, good UX, that will address what you, Juan, is bringing up. So like just regular people, non-techies, that's what you need for non-techies, and a mobile application or a browser page which is intuitive. You can click on an item and you don't have to learn anything. Like the less you learn, the better the application. And but for this we need I don't know what we need, but actually the problem like that we are facing here in Cardano is that there's much less things that we can actually do because of our software. Like account-based model is more versatile. It can do many things, but the things that you do end up being hacked. And Cardano is like unhackable, but that comes at the expense that like you just cannot do so many things as you could do in Ethereum. And that's what like what we need to bring to many learners, or to all the learners that come, that like unfortunately not everything that can be built on Ethereum can be built on Cardano, but if you can build it on Cardano, it will be secure. And like Cardano gets criticized for that.
Yeah.
But
So we agree. Let's go back. So I agree with that. That's the long-term vision, right? We all have a reason why we might want more developers. Absolutely. Okay. And because I understand that, that's why I want to focus on building a course for people who want to learn how to develop these applications. And what I want to do in Gimbalabs Spaces is be able to jump right into building this course without justifying it. Because Alex, I agree with you. There's a lot we want to be able to do. We need devs to be able to build it, right? And I don't want to have to justify that to anybody just to start the work of building this course. Does that make sense? Right? And that's why we're trying to get the driver right. Does this driver, as it's currently written, make people feel like you could either work on this project or say, okay, I understand that project, and I'm going to create a different project over here because I see a different need? But does this driver help create some guardrails around the time of people who really want to build this course for this audience? Any other clarifying questions or feedback about the driver as it's currently written? And again, the reason we're doing this is first and foremost as an example about how anybody here is invited to write a different proposal for anything, whether it's a different course or a different project entirely. I'm proposing buying some of my time to work on this, but that doesn't mean everybody's going to work on this. Okay. If I write the rest of this proposal tonight and share it with the crew here, and I write it specifically towards this driver, would you feel like that was safe enough to try? Or do you feel like there's anything here that needs to be changed in this driver in order for it to be safe enough to move forward? And this is called consenting to a driver, right? If you have objections to this proposal being written for this driver, please share those objections now.
I think the only thing that I'm wondering about is how do you get feedback from once this is implemented? Like if is there some way to to do updates to the course on the fly instead of trying to start over from scratch, like next time.
Yeah, excellent. So we need a feedback plan down here. And that's a great question. How can we make it more so the Plutus PBL course can just be revised in an ongoing way rather than ever needing to just rewrite it from the beginning? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
So we will need a feedback plan. And I'm going to just add this question as a placeholder here. How can we ensure that PPBL is revised and kept up to date in an ongoing way? And then in the driver, I'm trying to think, Ken, about how that would relate to a driver. We want to build a course that is always up to date. Would that be a fair way to say it? Is always
Or
relevant.
at least that you don't have to update the whole thing, where you can update parts as you find issues with it. Like it.
New version of PPBL 2024 can focus on guiding developers to understand.
You know, I think this is a great discussion, and it is something that S3 sort of takes into consideration, this idea of a time limited. It's just like, okay, we'll do this revision work, or we consent to a driver for a certain amount of time, or there's one where it's like at the beginning they say, oh, we'll revisit this at this certain date. I can't remember exactly where it is, but I think that it is important to put it into the driver, because the reason why things got out of date with PPBL 2023 is because in this ecosystem, stuff changes all the time. And so the driver should say, or the driver can recognize that and say, and address Ken's very astute point. It's just like, is there a way to craft it to where it's meant to revise, where it has structurally, there's a structural revision, it understands that in 6 months there's probably going to be a bugs and things that have changed, and this link or this documentation will be out of date, or you'll need it. What is it they call it? An errata, or the Latin word for, like, these are the changes that we didn't update the whole course, but you can check these notes for common places where people go off the rails. So anyway, yeah, that's right on point. That's great.
Very good point.
The truth is, we're not going to. Oh, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, even to have the option to look back and see what has changed, that's a valuable piece of information too.
Yeah, Git logs.
So the truth is, we're not starting from scratch, right? We do have the prior version of the course to start from. And there's plenty of lessons there that can be used with just a little bit of updating. A couple of things to keep in mind. This is exactly why we use learning targets. Yes. Learning targets should not change often, if ever. And you can think, for example, of a learning target that says, I can build a transaction in Mesh. The fact that we want learners to know how to do that hasn't changed in 3 years. The way transaction building in Mesh actually works at a technical level has evolved over time. So you can see how the learning target isn't changing at all. But we recognize that the way we teach that learning target has to be made up to date. And ideally, if we have a list of learning targets that we're really happy about, then we can share the responsibility of watching the lessons that accompany those learning targets. And this brings me to Newman's question. So yes, this time, the course is actually being overhauled more than it was last year. Last year, we didn't change the learning targets much, and so we're able to use a lot of the same content. I re-recorded a lot of videos just because that was easier than editing old ones. It took less time just to start from scratch there, and we can play with what's the most efficient way to do it. But this time, if we're thinking about streamlining or focusing the course, we will be reconfiguring the learning targets, but hopefully we can do it with our eyes towards the future. Now that we are focusing this course, and now that we are starting to think about how it branches out to other more focused courses, we can write a set of learning targets that we can start to look at and say, all right, that's a pretty good list. And we have some level of confidence that this list of learning targets will still be relevant in the future. And that's why when it comes to the details of the proposal, oh, I didn't add this yet. I added it here. Phase 1, right? Building the team and planning the course. We're going to convene the education circle to start this work. And what's the first thing we do together? We're going to revise the list of learning targets. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. And now moving forward, the other reason PPBL 2023 fell into disrepair is because we just don't have enough people working on it. Okay. Now we're starting to have a little bit of funding, and the work of maintaining a course is real work that takes time, and it ought to be compensated. And if we last year had funds to compensate people for maintaining the course, it would be more up to date right now, right? But instead, it's relying on volunteers to carve out a few minutes of their already busy time to make those changes. And as we can see, the evidence shows that's unsustainable. How's the driver look? So I added a line based on Ken's feedback. The course should be easy to update based on feedback from learners. How does that feel to add that there? Or do you have other concerns about the driver as it's currently written?
It seems like the phrasing, the course should be easy to update based on feedback from learners. It feels like the driver should be more like the thing that motivates us, because the context changes, or because things are always changing, the course should recognize. I don't know, just there's something that the taste is just off, but that's wordsmithing. But yeah.
What if I say this, the changing landscape of Cardano development and feedback from learners?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think not only learners, because the ecosystem evolves and we need to move faster or independently from the learners to changes on the program. If some developer that creates something that will really impact the project in a substantial way, and then the idea will be to correct the program and implement that change faster than the speed that the learner can find it, I guess.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe I will add their ecosystems, something related to that nature.
The changing Cardano development ecosystem. Yeah, we could say like the changing landscape of Cardano development, or the changing Cardano development ecosystem.
How about
it was there? Yeah.
How about able to adapt? The course should be easy to adapt to the evolving Cardano development ecosystem or something like that.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, these are words. Every time we work together, our goal is to get the words safe enough to try. As you can see, we could probably spend a really long time getting this sentence perfect, but what can we call good enough? The course should be easy enough to, you said, adapt.
Or easy, yeah, should be adaptable to the changes in
Course
the
should be adaptable to changes in the Cardano development ecosystem and well, the feedback part feels awkward now. But what if we just I mean, feedback is going to be part of the process. That's down below. But we recognize that what's driving us is we are in a system where things are changing all the time. So the course needs to be adaptable. How does that feel? All right. Recognizing once again that time is limited. Always time is limited. And we could definitely wordsmith this some more. But we're not going for perfect consensus. We're going for safe enough for now and good enough to try. Or I said that backwards. Good enough for now, safe enough to try. Consent. So one more time. I'm going to finish this proposal today and bring a final draft for your review to this meeting tomorrow. If I do it based on this driver, does that feel good enough for now and safe enough to try? Currently, the Gimbalabs Plutus PBL course is out of date and needs revision. It also has a general scope that is too big to be approachable to many learners. The current course does not support students to learn up-to-date Cardano development skills, and often students get stuck. All of that's our current situation. We're really piling it on ourselves. Wow. The effect is that Gimbalabs does not currently have an up-to-date course for onboarding new contributors. Ooh, I have an objection to that word. New people who want to learn how to develop applications on Cardano. I'm gonna shorten that to just new Cardano developers, just to be more specific than contributors in this case, as per our preceding conversation. We need to update and focus the Plutus PBL course to a 2024 version and to consider what some other PBL courses could be. The new version of PPBL 2024 can focus on guiding developers to understand the architecture of an application built on Cardano by implementing validator logic and corresponding transactions across a series of applied examples. Ooh, I like that. That's really focusing right there. The course should be adaptable to changes in the Cardano development ecosystem. By attending to this need, we will continue to provide safe spaces to learn and courses that empower individuals to define their individual learning pathways and start to contributing to real projects. We need to update and focus the course by attending to this need. All right. So you just saw me raise a few concerns that I changed a few words right there. Does anybody else have anything that would block this driver from being good enough for now and safe enough to try?
Love it. Giving it the heart, and I'm making the party hat, party horn, confetti.
In some other S3 spaces that I've been attending, yeah, we do make a point of celebrating when we do get to the point of consent. So thanks. This feels good. This feels better than it was. And I feel energized to flesh out a proposal. We've got a lot of great notes here. Now it just takes the work of an individual. This is hopefully how it works for all of us. Some people right here are going to start writing their own proposals. What I've just done is in this shared space, collected a lot of ideas from all of you, which means I don't have to start with a blank page. Thank you. But it always takes the dedicated work of an individual to then refine those ideas. This is not a proposal. This is a list of bullet points. I have to refine this into a paragraph or two that provides the background or rationale, and then give the same treatment to the rest of the proposal. And I'm really excited to do that. And I hope that the rest of you can start to imagine yourselves doing the same. These proposals is how work starts at Gimbalabs. And we're going to keep defining these systems as we go. Cool, let's do a quick checkout round. I just shared my checkout round. I'm really excited to refine this proposal and bring it back to everybody tomorrow. Nelson, how you leaving us today?
So I think we are having a good start for the BBL 2024. Yeah, it's very intentional, and yeah, I want to help build it along the way. So I'm here for it. Thanks, everyone.
Rock and roll, thank you. Newman, how about you?
Yeah, likewise. I feel like this was a great sort of fruition of all of our S3 work, being able to recognize the pieces of S3 governance in practice, and then I'm excited and inspired to work and contribute on the new course. Awesome.
Woo. Harsha.
I'm feeling pretty good about it too, but my biggest concern is every time we decide to work on something, it takes 3 to 4 hours just to decide the driver. I'd be like a little scared.
Well said. Well said. The first step is noticing that, and now we can all work on doing something about it. Claudio.
Yes, it's some progress, but yes, I echo Harsha's sentiment that unfortunately we get dragged into too long discussions about bureaucratic matters, and we don't make much progress in the actual content. But anyway, I'm happy that you're reacting this, and we keep on pushing the proposal forward. I was going to say, I kind of volunteer. I was talking about that was something that was missing for me in the PPBL and in general in the Cardano courses I've seen. I had the impression that many developers don't have a good grounding on functional programming. And functional programming permeates a lot of what we do with EXO, with React, with a lot of things in the Cardano ecosystem. So I was thinking of maybe using one of the Tuesday playground sessions to give a little expose of functional programming and how the ETXO model comes together using that. And maybe we can incorporate some of that in the course. I definitely would like to get involved in the education part of the Cardano, the PPBL 2024. So
incredible.
Let's hope it works out.
Claudio,
at least we will give our best effort.
I encourage you just to do that playground session that you're imagining. And playground can be a great place to just test out some ideas that might later turn into lessons. That's really awesome.
Good.
Ken, how about you?
Yeah, I think it was good. I think one of the things, I guess, that I feel a little bit uncomfortable about is there's the sort of the desire to be a part of the process for what's going on, and wanting to do that as well as like maybe break out and talking about something else at the same time. Like when your workflow isn't asynchronous, so you can't really do a little bit of each at the same time, or cycle back and forth between them in the process, stuff like that. That's sort of related to what I was thinking about in relationship to consent as well. And I was also considering maybe next Tuesday if I could take that space and talk about that for the Tuesday meeting or something. I'm thinking about doing that.
Beautiful. So that's you and Claudio both starting to have ideas for future playground sessions. Really encourage you both to take that on. I think that's a really great place to practice sharing these ideas and refining your own thoughts. I always learn when I present at Playground how I want to try to say something better. Chris.
Yes, well, many different parts over here. Next time I'm gonna be taking notes because I didn't want to interrupt you when you were making changes and writing things. But yes, well, I realized how hard it is to create or make changes to a course. My opinion, I've been in a couple of Cardano courses in the past, and I think the PPBL 2023 was the one that I better fit in the course. So obviously nothing is perfect. Always gonna be some kind of things, or different people have a different point of view, but I think it's perfect. And I also want to mention that what you said in the beginning about to maybe implement in the PPBL 2024 the what's the name of
area.
Yes, I think that that could be awesome because you can learn and practice many of the things that I already was going through in the 2023. You know, you can learn about the UTXO model, how to unlock contracts, maybe change the datum in the contract. I mean, many things. So I think that's going to be awesome. Maybe we can practice how to implement an NFT into the game and many things. So I think that could be really interesting and a really good learning practice. So well, I love it. I love what you've been working on, and for me it's perfect. So to keep on, I mean, some of the things over here. Let me take a look. We need to have the.
Chris, yeah, if you have specifics to add to our planning, be sure just to drop them in Discord or
Okay.
yeah. We're just doing a quick checkout round for now.
Right. Okay. I'm sorry.
No, keep the details coming. And this is why I would love to get people Notion accounts so that when you have ideas like that, you can drop them directly in there and we can start.
Can I already get into the Notion and write stuff or not?
Not yet. We got to add some. We got to add those, but for now, just use the Discord education channel, and whatever notes you add there, I'll add them to this proposal.
All right.
I can't wait to get to those specifics with you. This is going to be really fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just doing a quick checkout round. Alex, how you leaving us today?
Some people say that it takes a long time to go through consent process and proposal, but for me, it's the opposite. I have the bits of code and some content for what I suggest, for the improvements that I suggest, in particular in Helios. I don't have a proposal. So that's how I live today.
Right on. Sebastian.
Yeah, pretty excited around on what the PPBL 2024 can do, can make with all these infrastructure around PPBLs. Very excited. Thank you.
And Juan.
Well, yeah, I think we have a very compelling driver, and we solved many tensions that we have for the way it has been done in the past. I mean, this session has been very useful in terms of the savings, the focus, and what is coming. Because with this driver, you know, the rest is just what you just said. Tonight, you write down the proposal and we'll start working on them. So yeah, very excited about it.
And finally, Martin.
Yeah, I'm good to follow along, and indeed, seeing with this many people, building consensus takes time, of course, and maybe if you start working with, you've got quite a lot of people. If you can split up the task, that will be interesting to see how that goes and how you keep synchronized. And
it's really good to hear people reflecting on the time it takes to make consent and also the time it takes to create projects or proposals. And this is just one thing for everybody to take away today. This process of consent that we're working through doesn't have to happen at the organizational level every time. When people, for example, start organizing into the circles that we defined in January, you can just run this process with the handful of people who show up for that circle rather than with the whole organization. So obviously the bigger the group of people, the longer consent is going to take. But at the same time, we can get more efficient at it, right? So it's a good thing for us to practice. But always when we first start practicing, it does move slowly. But yeah, I'm so excited to move into the phase of actual doing. And just remember this, right? What would be the fastest way to build any course? It would be for any of us to disappear and not ask for advice and not ask for consent and just do it the way we want to do it. It's always faster to do it your own way than to collaborate with other people. Always. Right? But we're choosing collaboration. We're choosing consent, even though we know it's more or it's less efficient at first, because hopefully this helps us to align on the project that we're doing in a way that's going to build some efficiencies later on. So can't wait to see those. We haven't seen them yet because it took us 3 days to decide to use Notion, and we're still in the process of deciding how we build PPBL 2024. And that absolutely does feel like bureaucracy, but we got to do it because we can get better at this. And if we're aligned, we'll find out, right, whether this actually leads to really helpful collaborations. So thanks for being here for it, everybody. Newman, do you want to share about this S3 meeting?
Yeah, just briefly, there's an S3 meeting tomorrow about some changes in the patterns and whatnot. It's a 90-minute meeting, so it seems like there might be a big thing. I'd encourage Ken to go. I'm probably going to attend. I think Nori is also going to attend. But yeah.
Awesome. And for anybody who's not aware, every Tuesday, at what time is that now? Doing the quick math, 2100 UTC. There's an Odin S3 study group meeting. So anybody here who really wants to focus on the processes of S3 itself, right, rather than this kind of aggressively learn by doing approach we're taking here at Gimbalabs, there is a space where you can really zoom in on the S3 part. And if anybody needs that, just ping Juan or Newman or Harsha or me in the Gimbalabs Discord, and we'll point you over to the Odin server and tell you about those other meetings. All right.
Great.
I'm looking forward to bringing a proposal to y'all tomorrow. I'll try to share a draft before I go to sleep tonight so you can read it ahead of the meeting. But my goal will be to get relatively efficient consent to move forward with this proposal.
Sweet. I definitely will read before. I'll check for it, and that's an important part, is to do the reading. Do the reading is what we're asked to do. So I'm going to do that for sure. Here we go.
Here we go. Have a good day, everybody.